So how do I go from this to that?
Listen, I'm sorry, okay? About everything. Let's just work together and we'll nail this guy. And after that happens, those charges against you are gonna disappear. Plus, you'll get your badge and your gun back too. I'm sorry, okay? About everything. Let's just work together and we'll nail this guy. And after that happens, those charges against you are gonna disappear. Plus, you'll get your badge and your gun back too.
I'm really not someone that thinks shallow depth of field instantly means cinematic, but in this case, it serves multiple purposes. Not only does it look a little more cinematic, but it also isolates the character. Without it, you really don't know where to look. If you look to the right of the frame, her hair is a little bit out of focus, which is nice. But then the depth of field with him and the cars behind him, it looks like he's standing right next to those cars. And not to mention also, when you have that shallow depth of field, it can make something that maybe doesn't look as attractive, like the background, the signs, the logos, that kind of stuff. It can make it go away, which is kind of cool. So how did I do this? That's the end result. The very first thing I want to talk about is how we shot this in 4K, knowing we were going to reframe. We mastered in 2K scope, which is 2048 by 858. So 2048 across and 858 high. So if you look at this footage, and I scale it back, you can see it's actually 16 by 9. We've pushed in on it to fill the frame. If I was just filling the top and bottom, it would be there, and you would have the black bars on the left and right side, which wouldn't be good, of course. The main reason we did this is we shot a lot of this film with the Moondog Labs anamorphic adapter. That is an adapter that gives you a true widescreen look. So we used that aspect ratio in our edit and reframed. Since we were shooting in 4K, we had tons of room to reframe. Now, since this is already done, I'm going to deconstruct it, which I've done in some past tutorials. I'll turn this adjustment layer off because that's one of the last things I did. And I'll also turn off the second layer. So here's the original footage. And one thing to note, the reason his face is so red, it's not because he had been drinking a lot of alcohol, although who knows, he may have been, but it's because of the red car here. The sun, it was acting like a reflector. The sun was hitting off that and bouncing up into his face. Or that's one of the reasons. The white balance was a little bit on the warmer side, but I think the combination of the two is what happened there. So here's the original shot within our 2K widescreen aspect ratio. And the very first thing I did was I went in and I did secondaries. What are secondaries? Well, I'm not going to go too deep into that right now, but secondaries are where you go in and you choose different colors, at least in Lumetri color here in Adobe Premiere Pro. You can go in there and pick different colors and remove them or turn them a different color or desaturate is what I did in this case. So I picked all the different red in his face and you can see there's the red. And I went in and selected it and I desaturated it. Here's the mask I created. You can see the actual eyedropper picked up some red in different places, but it doesn't really matter. You can't really see that. It's mainly in his face that I care about. Again, there's with the effect on and there's with the effect off. So I did that. I also did general color correction as well on the whole image. And I also used one of our LUT packs. So from there, I duplicated the footage. I took what's on video layer 1 and I copied it to video layer 2. So it's an exact clone. After that, I added a Gaussian blur to video layer 1 to simulate shallow depth of field, out of focus areas in the background. Now, of course, you can see it covered the entire frame. I'm going to go in and mask around him and thus faking shallow depth of field. So I'll turn this top layer on. This So now you can see that it looks like that was shot that way. So you can see the mask moves with him frame by frame. And the good news is he wasn't moving a whole lot, so this wasn't a terrible job. And you can use the tracking, and that's actually what I did. I drew the mask initially with the pen tool. I'm not going to do it right now, but you can see I went in and I did each of these dots and connected it, and then I feathered it a little bit. And when you track it, it'll follow the motion pretty well. It doesn't follow it perfectly. So I had to go in pretty much frame by frame and adjust all the keyframes. This is more or less rotoscoping, so it is not glamorous. It's very tedious. But I think it really helped this scene and made it look much more like a movie. Again, I mentioned at the beginning, the couple things it does: hides the background, also isolates him. So just so you can see the mask, you see the mask there, but so you can really see what I did, we'll turn the bottom layer off. And there he is. One nice thing about doing this technique is it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see that around the edges there's a little bit of a feather, and if you look really closely on the actual footage, you can see that in a couple instances, but it's negligible, and no one would really ever even know that this was done if I hadn't showed it. And that's pretty much the case with most invisible type visual effects like this. Just want to skip ahead down here. This part of the shot was a little bit tricky. This is where he is moving quite a bit, and I'm just going to step through this. You can see occasionally the mask does not track exactly with him. And again, it's okay in this type of shot. You would really never notice it. Like right there, as he bends down, some of the matte is not exact. But the nice thing is you have motion blur on him, because I made sure to shoot at 1/48 shutter. And motion blur is a beautiful thing. It'll help hide all kinds of things. I use motion blur all the time in After Effects, whether it's on graphics or any kind of visual effect. And speaking of After Effects, I could have gone in there and used the roto brush. That would have really been easier than doing this in Premiere. But I wanted to keep it all in Premiere, and I also wanted to do it so I could show you guys this technique, because this can be done in Final Cut Pro 10. It can be done in a lot of different programs. You don't have to go into After Effects to do this. Again, it's tedious, it takes some time, but the end result will be almost exactly the same. And so the last touch that I did to really make it look more filmic was I added one more layer of color correction using another LUT on top of the other stuff. This one is a Kodak film emulsion type LUT, and I added a vignette. The vignette works in conjunction with the shallow depth of field visual effect to really focus your attention, no pun intended, on his face. And so there you go. That is how you fake shallow depth of field shooting with a small sensor camera. And by the way, I've done this trick with other cameras, not just smartphones. I have a Blackmagic Cinema camera that has a smaller sensor, and I did this exact same thing on a couple projects. Be sure to check out the actual short film Miranda, which we entered in the FiLMiC Pro One World Film Contest. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, definitely do that now. We appreciate it, and it really does help. And we will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.